Hello, welcome to Spread Book Joy. Today I am delighted to be doing a TBR video, which is a shock because I don't usually do them, but it's for Jane Austen July. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jack. If you're not new, welcome back to my channel. I usually post videos on a Saturday about my own reading, which is what this one is, and I post midweek review videos, mainly about children's books, but could be about something else instead. Because I'm a teacher, I like to publish reviews about children's books because I want children to read, I want people to find great books for them. But some adults like reading children's books as well, so yeah, you might like those. If you want to check them out, I'll put a card up at the end. But today is all about Jane Austen July, which I'm very, very excited about. Jane Austen July is the first readathon, in fact, the only readathon I've ever taken part in. And I'm definitely taking part in it again this year because I just have such fond memories of last year reading Jane Austen till it came out of my ears, if that's such a thing. But yeah, Jane Austen July was started up 4 years ago by some amazing booktubers. I discovered it myself through Claudia from Spinster's Library, who I've been watching for quite a while now actually, and she's someone who actually inspired me to really start up my own YouTube channel, because my own booktube, because I loved watching her stuff, and she did a great series about booktubing, which I'll put in the description box below. You should check it out if you're ever inclined to do some booktubing yourself. Very practical videos about her process. Anyway, I'm digressing from Jane Austen. She talks about classics a lot, Claudia. She's a classics reader. She reads other things as well, but classics is her bag, because it's Spinster's Library, it's cats and classic literature, which I love. She talked about Jane Austen July, and I was hooked, because I don't think I can consider myself a Janeite because I haven't read all of her books, but I am a massive Jane Austen fan. I've got more into her as I've got older as well. But yes, I was really intrigued. And the actual event was started by Marissa from Blatantly Bookish and Katie from Books and Things. And Claudia does brilliant Jane Austen July content all the way through. So this year, she is now a co-host of Jane Austen July. Well done, Claudia. I think it's well deserved. And they host a Goodreads group where you can chat with fellow Jane Austen enthusiasts. There are 7 challenges, got that completely wrong. There are 7 challenges, and people set up their TBRs, and the Goodreads groups are good fun. There are 2 readalongs that happen as well as part of the Goodreads group. So this year's readalongs are Mansfield Park and Persuasion. And I'm going to talk to you about my TBR, and I urge you, if you like Jane Austen, it's a fun readathon to take part in. And actually, I've talked a lot about mood reading lately on my channel, so it's a surprise to see me doing a TBR. TBRs are like window shopping. And I did a TBR last year for Jane Austen July, completely went off my TBR, but I did manage to complete some of it. And some of it that I didn't do last year, I'm putting onto my TBR this year in the hope that I stick to it and I manage to get through these books. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk to you about my TBR. Challenge number 1 is to read one of Jane Austen's 6 novels. Now, I've already said they're doing a read-along of Mansfield Park and Persuasion. Persuasion is the second favourite book of Jane Austen's of mine. Pride and Prejudice will I don't think ever be eclipsed in my heart as my favourite Jane Austen book, but Persuasion is one that I only read for the first time about 4 or 5 years ago, and I have read several times since, and I read it last year. If you've never read Persuasion, it was Jane Austen's last novel, which was published posthumously after her death, and it's really different from her other books. Still has the same witty observations and sort of societal observations, but it's much more melancholy, and it's a book about an older woman and a relationship which had been broken off. It's one of the most romantic books I've ever read. I'm not going to read it because last year I delved into it again, and I have got 2 books of hers that I haven't read yet. One is Mansfield Park, which is her, I think it's her longest one. Maybe Emma's her longest, I'm not sure, but it's a chunk. I mean, look at it. I've got these beautiful, by the way, I'm just showing you my beautiful vintage classics editions of Jane Austen. I have 2 other copies of Pride and Prejudice, and a copy of Emma, and a copy of, I can't remember what else. which I've had for years and years and years, and they're sort of very old copies that I bought paperback really cheap when you could buy classics really cheap. One of the Pride and Prejudice editions I have is a beautiful hardback edition that someone gave me as a gift, and then I was given a lovely vintage classics edition of Pride and Prejudice, and I just had to then buy the entire set so that I had a nice set. The reason I bought this entire set was because of Jane Austen July last year. I was like, I want all her books. I want all of them, and I want pretty copies of them. And they're just like, just look how pretty these vintage classics editions are. And they've got a little quote on the back from each of them, which is just wonderful. I just think they're really nicely designed. So so Mansfield Park, we'll go back to Mansfield Park. Mansfield Park is a tonk of a book. It's 500 and something pages, and her, it's not small. The reason it wouldn't bother me, apart from the fact that this is not the first time I've tried to read Mansfield Park. I tried to read Mansfield Park, I can't remember when. It's within the last 10 years. Didn't care for it, couldn't get into it, didn't enjoy it in the same way I've been gripped and brought into most of her novels, although that's kind of a lie, because the first time I ever read Jane Austen I hated it, but I read it at school, and we did it for A-level. We did Emma, and I really didn't like it. I think it's because I wasn't enjoying my A-level English, but I love it now. Anyway, Mansfield Park, I'm glad they're doing it for the read-along, because there are certain amounts of chapters each day. There's going to be discussion on it, and I'm going to really enjoy taking part in that read-along, because I think I need accountability for this one. I want to finish it. And the reason I want to finish it is I don't think you can call yourself a Janeite unless you've read all of her main 6 novels, her big 6. But also, for another book that's coming along in my TBR, I need to have read all of her books. So the second book I'm going to read by Jane Austen is the other book that I have never fully completed. I don't think I've ever started it. I know what Northanger Abbey is about, and I don't know if it's because I saw an adaptation some years ago, but this was her first book that she completed and wrote when she was younger. It was published later, but I believe, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. People who are Jane Austen fans will be like, your knowledge is woeful. It's her taking on the Gothic novel and laughing at it in some ways, I believe. I haven't read it yet. Yeah, it's supposed to be a really nice, fun, light Jane Austen read, which I'm really looking forward to. I have to say, I'm not looking forward to Mansfield Park. It's got a love-hate relationship for a lot of people. It's either they love it, Mansfield Park is their favourite Jane Austen, or they really don't like it. And I suspect I'm really not going to like it, but I will read it. I'm determined to read it and finish it. Although my mantra is to DNF books you're not enjoying, but it's Jane Austen. I've got to do it. The second prompt is to read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her main 6 novels, and there's lots of things you could read. She's got Juvenilia, she has some other stories, she's got an unfinished novel, Sanditon, and I think I'm going to read Sanditon. I'm going to give that a go. So hopefully I'll stick to that. There's also some letters, Jane Austen's letters, but I might try those. I might try and read a few of her letters. I did try some of her Juvenilia last year, her History of England, and I can't remember what else, but they're quite funny. But it's her writing from when she's younger, hence the term Juvenilia. I'm quite looking forward to Sanditon because it's supposed to be really good. That was what she was writing when she died, so it was never finished, which may be frustrating, but we'll see. Challenge number 3 is read a non-fiction book about Jane Austen and her time. Or her time, I should say. So last year I read Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley, which was very good. I listened to it on audio. The concept of home in Jane Austen's novels comes up a lot because, of course, Jane Austen, if you're not familiar with her life, she was moved around from house to house, and they were, reliant on the goodwill of relatives and people to look after them because they were women on their own, unmarried. Her and her sister and her mother was a widow, and she relied on the kindness of strangers. And you get that a lot in Sense and Sensibility. Of course, the Dashwoods are in a similar position, that's the premise of sort of Pride and Prejudice. What will happen to the Bennets once Mr. Bennet is dead, because they can't inherit Longbourn. So being a woman and not owning property and being reliant on a man for the very basis of home, they're strong themes within Austen. So Jane Austen at Home is explores that. It explores Jane Austen's life through the various homes she lived in, and the problems she had with having without, but by the very fact and the virtue of that she wasn't married, and that her family were kind of scattered actually and reliant on the goodwill of others. So yeah, it's a very interesting book, but not like a life story. And I will like to read a life story, but this year I've chosen to read What Matters in Austen by John Mullen. But I can't necessarily read it in Jane Austen July because, and this is why I wanted to read Mansfield Park and Northanger Abbey, because it's all about the minutiae of Austen's writing, and the apparently it gives you a really great appreciation for the intricacy of her writing and how everything is linked together, and actually how everything in her writing has a purpose. Every seemingly nonsensical matter or throwaway comment or characters that don't speak, etc. So John Mullen has, you know, spent a lifetime studying Austen. He mulls over these puzzles and presents them to us, but you have to have read all of her work, because there are spoilers, and I don't want spoilers. I want to actually have read all of her works. So I'm looking forward to that, but like I said, it may not get to it in July, but it may be after that. I'll listen to it on audio probably. I like to consume non-fiction on audio. If you've seen my recent audiobook video, you'll know that. So yeah, that's my choice for non-fiction. Number 4 is to read a retelling of a Jane Austen book, and this is nice and loose. It doesn't have to be a direct retelling. It could be could be a book that's telling the story from the point of view from another character, or it could be you know, something that's based on a Jane Austen book. And so last year I read Longbourn by Jo Baker. I believe it's Jo Baker. If I've got that wrong, I'll put that up on the screen. But I've really enjoyed it. So Longbourn tells the story of Pride and Prejudice from the point of view of the servants. And I know some people in our group on Goodreads said it was dull. I didn't think so. I really enjoyed it. I liked the background. I liked seeing these snippets of the Bennet family through the eyes of the servants. And I found the story itself, the characters that the story was about, I found them compelling, and I wanted to know what happened to them, so I really enjoyed Longbourn. This year I'd like to read The Other Bennet Sister by Janet Hadlow. Oh no, Janice Hadlow, which is all about Mary Bennet, Mary Bennet, who is, yeah, the kind of quietest of all the Bennet sisters, the one who's in the background. She's the quiet, intelligent one. If you've never read Pride and Prejudice, or I say intelligent, she prides herself on being a learned person, but she's, you know, she's quite ridiculous in lots of ways. But yeah, it's about her. It's all about Mary Bennet, and I'm looking forward to reading that. I've been told it's amazing. But if I did get time, I would love to read Pride by Ibi Zoboi, which is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice set in modern day Brooklyn, I believe, and it's supposed to be lots of fun. There are so many really good retellings of Austen books out there that I would like to get to. Last year, like I said, I read Longbourn, but I have read P.D. James's Death Comes to Pemberley, which I know people aren't fans of. I am. I think it's just because it's Austen, I just get sucked into it. Challenge number 5 is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. I didn't complete this challenge last year, which is a real shame, but this year I'd like to try and read Evelina by Fanny Burney. Fanny Burney was an author who wrote when Jane Austen was very, very young, but her books heavily influenced Austen's own work. And Evelina is a story about a young girl's entrance into late 18th century society, and it's a satirical look at the behaviours of society and the ridiculous situations this girl finds herself in, apparently, and it's supposed to be very, very, very funny and very clever. Challenges 6 and 7 are not about books at all. Challenges 6 and 7 are about watching Jane Austen TV or adaptations. So the first one is to watch a direct adaptation, so you know, definite costume drama, full-blown thing. I'm going to watch Emma, last year's Emma, which I haven't watched yet, so that will be one that I watch this year. I'd also kind of like to revisit the 2005 Pride and Prejudice film. Is it 2005? I don't know. I'm talking about this. I'll put it up on the screen, the one with Keira Knightley in it, because I didn't enjoy it that much, but that's because I have such fondness for the BBC adaptation, the 1995 BBC adaptation with Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely, which I just love, and I will watch that probably as well. The seventh and final challenge is to watch a screen adaptation which is not a direct adaptation. Lots of people watch Clueless because it's an adaptation of Emma, which very famously adapted by adaptation of Emma. I'm going to dig out something that is just a bit of fun and I really loved, and it was a TV series probably about 10-15 years old now, called Lost in Austen. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's Jemima Rooper, and she plays a woman who's obsessed with Jane Austen, and she ends up getting pulled back to Austen's time and taking part in Pride and Prejudice. She swaps places with Lizzie Bennet to great hilarity, and I think it was really well done. It's very funny and it's a very affectionate, fun look at Austen, and also on the adaptations as well. There are some jokes in there about those, but yeah, really good fun. It's only about 4 or 5 episodes, I think, and I've got a DVD of it somewhere. But if you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon Prime. No, it's not on Prime, you have to pay for it, but I'd highly recommend it if you can find it, because it was just good fun. So that's Jane Austen July. If you are a Jane Austen fan, take part. The good thing about a readathon is that it's do it at your leisure. You make up your TBR, there are challenges, you meet them, you don't meet them, but you can just take part in it and enjoy it, and yeah, have fun with it. Last year what I did, I decided I was going to read Emma, because it was part of the read-along, and I think Pride and Prejudice. I can't remember what the read-alongs were last year, but I thought I'll take part in those. Then I just went completely off, and I just then was like, nope, I'm going to read Persuasion, and I'm going to read Sense and Sensibility. What a terrible memory. And then I managed the non-fiction. I managed the book based on a Jane Austen. My neighbours decided to start drilling as I'm doing this, sorry. I've managed the book based on Jane Austen. I watched a million different adaptations of Jane Austen. I didn't quite manage the contemporary novel, and I read a bit of the juvenilia, but not much. So this year I'm hoping to get through my challenges. If I don't, I don't. It's all fun. If you like it though, please go and watch the announcement videos from Claudia and Marissa and Katie, and they've also done TBR videos. Claudia's video, if you are someone who watches my channel regularly, I would urge you to go and watch her video, because she's got some really exciting content coming up, which I'm thrilled to watch. So yeah, I'll leave you with that. If you like this video and you've never been here before, please consider subscribing, and please click like. And if you liked this rambling nonsense and you want more of this rambling nonsense, like I said, please consider clicking like, clicking subscribe and ringing the bell. If you're taking part in Jane Austen, I'd love to hear about it. Please leave a comment in the comment box below, and if you've got a favourite Jane Austen adaptation, I'd love to hear about it. So yeah, let's have that discussion, and hopefully I'll see you again here soon. Bye.